Are you seeking guidance to enhance your TRIO project's effectiveness and success? Look no further. NOSOTROS Education Center, NEC, is here to empower your TRIO project with expert consulting services. NEC's mission is to promote the effectiveness and impact of TRIO programs. Since 2003, NEC has specialized in providing professional development and in-service staff trainings, allowable cost services, for TRIO projects across the country. The team at NEC, with over 60 years of combined TRIO experience, offers customized workshops and seminars for project staff, compliance assessments, external evaluations, working on and submitting APRs, database customization and training, development of policies and procedures manuals, and project implementation or reorganization services. Additionally, NEC has secured over $774 million in federal funding with a 92% success rate through their live and on-demand proposal workshops, assistance with data collection and review, detailed technical reviews, and comprehensive proposal development services. Join the hundreds of colleges, agencies, and TRIO projects across the country who benefited from NEC's expertise. NOSOTROS Education Center, your partner in TRIO's project success. Visit their website at nosotros.edu.org. Again, that's nosotros.edu.org.
You are listening to Let's Talk TRIO on podcast. Keep up with the latest episodes by downloading the Podbean app or stream episodes via our social media accounts. Search for Let's Talk TRIO on Facebook or Instagram. This episode is sponsored by Student Access. Student Access, the leader in TRIO software. Student Access is an online database solution that allows TRIO programs to track their students' information, connect with students by text messages, streamline the APR, and work from anywhere, all online, with automatic updates for changes from the Department of Education. Their technical support team includes former TRIO staff and has over 50 years of combined experience working with TRIO. Make it easier to focus on your priority, the students. For more information and to request a free demo, visit their website at www.studentaccess.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-801-1232. That website again is www.studentaccess.com or 1-800-801-1232. Be sure to share your favorite episodes on your social media by tapping that share button. This is a great way to support the podcast. Now here's your host, Juan Rivas.
Thank you, Amelia, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, listener, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk TRIO. This is Season 6, Episode 3. I am your host, Juan Rivas. In today's episode, we have Catherine Ybarra, who is the director of the TRIO Upward Bound Math Science program at the College of the Sequoias in Visalia, California. Catherine is on the podcast to share her educational journey, her professional journey, and being the director for a TRIO Upward Bound Math Science program. So coming up in just a bit, Catherine Ybarra. A huge thanks to our sponsors, Angelica Villalpando, Rosario Riley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Jeff Naputi, Angelica Valdez, Felicia Rivera, Jaded Electronics, TRIOJoblist.com, Nosotros Education Center, Cambridge Educational Services, and Student Access. Thank you so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can be a sponsor of the podcast. Head on over to Patreon and search for Let's Talk TRIO. Choose one of 4 patron levels. You can support this podcast for as little as $1 a month. $1 a month goes a long way in supporting this podcast. If you own a business and would like to run an ad on our podcast, send us a message at letstalktrio@gmail.com. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast PayPal account. Our handle is @letstalktrio. Any amount is truly appreciated. If you would like to nominate a participant, staff, alumni, or an advocate to be on the podcast, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. Again, a great episode featuring Catherine Ybarra, the director for the Upward Bound Math Science program at the College of the Sequoias. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hi, Trio Nation. My guest on the Let's Talk Trio podcast is the director for the Trio Upward Bound Math Science program at the College of the Sequoias in Visalia, California. She earned her bachelor's degree in English education from California State University, Fresno, and her master's in psychology with an emphasis in life coaching from Grand Canyon University. She is a first-generation college student and the oldest in the family. She was born in Hanford, California, but is raised in Huron, California. Catherine is a very proud Latina who believes that education is priority. Some of her proudest work includes interview videos for California State University, Fresno, where she shared her story about resources and food insecurity, and participated in a worldwide virtual conference, the Celebrate Your Story Conference. In her free time, my guest enjoys dancing, reading, free writing, spending time in nature with her family, often practicing self-care and exploring different places. Welcome to the podcast, Catherine Ybarra. Catherine, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Juan, for having me. It is completely a true honor. It probably has been the last time I did a podcast, probably was back in 2018. So this is my second one. It's been a while.
Yeah. Well, it's an honor to have you on the podcast and for us to be your second one, which is amazing. Again, appreciate you being on here. I appreciate that you're going to discuss your experience in Trio and your educational journey.
Yeah, for sure. I am so ready for it. Cannot wait to just share what I'm all about and hopefully be able to inspire some people out there that might be like me as well.
Wonderful. How are you doing? How are things in California?
I'm doing pretty okay. A little bit more tired than usual, but hanging in there. California, I mean, it's California. I really don't know what else to say based off of it. I mean, The weather changes, things are happening, stuff, things come and go, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, just really happy just to, be living and waking up every day and do what I have to do.
Absolutely. Well, we had our first experience with winter weather in Colorado. We had just our first bout of snow. Are you all feeling the fall weather in California? Not quite yet. Is it in transition? How would you describe the weather to someone who is not from California?
Yeah, so right now we're in California. We're currently diving into like the fall season. We're actually in fall season. So it's getting a little bit cooler. I would say that for a person that is not from California, if you are a summer person, our summer, like if you really, really love summer, and I'm talking about like over 100 degrees, because some people do.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, I would say probably come be here in California in June, but for sure July and August, I would say is like our most hottest months. But if you're more like me, like more kind of fresh, you don't, yes, a little bit warm, but not too cold, I would say probably fall. Right now we're transitioning where it's like now the mornings and nights are a little bit more cooler, but throughout the day, it's kind of warm. Like it's okay, you're out there without a sweater, but really, probably towards the end after Thanksgiving, it starts getting really cool. And now if you're a spring person, of course, you love the blossoming, just like myself, blossom season. A good time to be in California would be either between, I want to say, March and April. So just for my listeners out there who are wondering, how's the weather of California? There you have it. So hopefully that motivates you to visit us one day.
Wonderful. So we are recording this episode at the very start of November. We have about only 1 month left. Are there any items on your to-do list for this year that you want to accomplish before this year is out?
Yeah, well, I think work-wise, we have a really big report, and we'll probably dive into it in just a bit. But for my listeners out there who are in Trio, APR, it is APR season. Woohoo, the best time of the year. That's one of my biggest goals. And the second thing is being able to plan for winter break. Very excited, just have some time off, being able to visit my family up in Mexico. We tend to do that every winter break. Just really looking forward to that. And of course, ending, I'm a really big person, just like how you mentioned earlier about exploring or practicing self-care. So being able to end with some type of reflection of 2023, how did I do? What are things moving on to 2024 that I want to improve on? So that I would say that would be the biggest things.
So, speaking of things that you have accomplished in 2023, what is something that you're very proud to have accomplished this year?
I would say growth. I have come a very long way, and specifically with this, with my new role as the director, which we will get into a little bit more detail in just a bit. But growth, I think it's super important. I feel like we don't really take advantage or just kind of pause and really go back and see, okay, how much have I grown? The Catherine who once started back in 2023 is definitely not the same one who is now. I mean, growth is so important and we need to take the time to reflect and really make those pauses because it's really during those pauses that we really get to understand and figure out ourselves out more.
Absolutely. So, you named dancing, free writing, hiking in nature, or enjoying nature, and then really practicing self care. How did you get interested in those hobbies, and how did they develop for you?
Yeah, so dancing has always been a huge passion of mine. I've been dancing since age 3. For my Hispanic culture, for those of you who are really fans of cumbia is my favorite type of dance. There is a really good group in the name of Fito Olivares. He actually passed away a couple months ago, which was it was very sad, but he's the one that started it all for me. I started dancing in my baptism when I was 3 years old, and that's where it all started. So dancing, I love it. I use it as a form to relax. I'm the type of person that whenever I go to fiestas and parties, I am always on the dance floor and I will be like on the dance floor for hours nonstop. That's how
Yeah,
much I love to dance. And with
that's
reading
awesome.
and writing, I mean, I've always enjoyed it. It relaxes me and nature. I love nature. Nature fulfills me. It relaxes me. I always have to be outside. I can just be sitting down under a tree and just but really truly connect with nature. I think there's a difference between seeing nature but actually feeling it. In the words
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
one of my favorite life coaches and also podcasters, Trent Shelton, you'll probably often hear me mention him throughout this podcast. He once said that the a walk in nature walks the soul back home. And
I love that.
I truly believe that because sometimes we can be having the worst days, but a walk in nature can just help us calm and kind of brings us back together where we need to be. So, I mean, it's really all about just exploring. I'm always looking for something new. Again, going back to growth. I want to become a better human being in this world, become a better daughter, a better worker, a better friend, overall. So, I would say that's pretty much how my interest and all of my hobbies, came about.
What draws you about family? Like, what draws you in about family that gives you energy?
About family,
Hmm.
just I would say the communication, being able to be together and share moments. Like up to this day, I mean, it's just I'm the oldest child, and it's just me and my sister. And even as adults, we're both adults already, and we're constantly when we go out, we tend to go out as a family. And I know
Hmm.
other families they don't do that anymore. It's usually just like the kids, or maybe it's just the dad and one of the so one of the daughters or sons or whatever. But I feel like with us, we've always had that close connection, and I think that's super important.
Absolutely. Can we wind the clocks back a little bit, Catherine? Can you share about your family and what your upbringing was like?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we've always been a family that I would, relate to like being really close together. And I think a lot of it has comes from like my familia de Mexico, like my family from there. My parents, they have always traveled. We always travel like during the holidays, like for Christmas and New Year's. That's where we are at, during that time. And because we have family that unfortunately cannot travel here to the US, so we go visit them. And I feel growing up in that lifestyle, it has always it has made me be the person who I am today. Yes, I tend to be a very shy girl, and I think it all revolves back into just how I grew up. Growing up at home, it was always well. I always had the support of my family, but at school it was actually kind of a little bit rough. I was bullied often,
Hmm.
and not many people know this, but I was really bullied often, and so my self-esteem was super low growing up. And it wasn't until when I got older and I finally realized, where like my value. That's where I really started. That's where I feel like I really started living life. So with my family, we take it really seriously, and shout out to my family from La Piedad, Michoacán. That's where we are from. And so, we just love it. We love it. It's a beautiful time always to go visit. And more than anything, celebrate traditions, keeping those alive. Like when it comes to like my familia de Mexico, my family from over there, we are constantly celebrating traditions. So that I feel like that's, growing up as a child, even up to this day, we still keep some of those traditions really alive. And that's really who has made me the person today.
That's wonderful. How would your family describe you?
I would say um pretty funny at times, a little bit over dramatic in a good way. But I mean, it's family. I'm in my household, so no one can tell me anything. That's when I can
There
really
you go.
be my true self. So I would say that very creative. I always been a super creative person, and I think I got it from my mom. She's always been the type that she's like decorating the house, and even
Hmm.
for the holidays. I feel like we've become more closer. Like she'll be like, okay, now we need to decorate for this. Like right now we're decorating for Thanksgiving, and then we're already excited to decorate for Christmas. I know some
Hmm.
people out there, they're like, oh, forget Thanksgiving. My Christmas stuff are going up.
Yeah.
So yeah, creative and also really hardworking, patient. I've always been a very responsible daughter and person, and my parents always taught me those values of you need to work hard, like being able to clean your room and and really be respectful. Like even at age 5, I was already cleaning the restroom. I was already cleaning, the
Whoa.
toilet at age 5. So I
Wow.
started off very young, and so I think my parents teaching me that it made me become the responsible person. Like even at a young age, doing laundry, stuff like that, which a lot of kids don't normally do at a young age. I was already doing that because my parents taught me that. So that's where I would say that they would consider me being a very responsible and more than anything respectful. Respect was always huge in our household, and up to this day, like no matter what comes or what life throws at you, be
Hmm.
respectful and move forward from there.
Right on. Do you recall if school was something you were already interested in as it started, like for you going into elementary, middle school, things like that?
Yeah, so from the moment, and this is like a very weird moment, but from the moment that I walked into my kindergarten class, I knew that I was going to be in education. I didn't know what
Really?
yet. Yes, I
Wow.
remember going in there, and it's just the room was filled with like the ABCs, the one, two, threes, super
Hmm.
colorful. I remember we would often get these cookies, these like alphabet cookies that were super good, which FYI, I believe they are in Trader Joe's, so you can go check them out. They're super delicious. I promise you. It's like you eat them nonstop. But I remember just that scenery and I felt like, this is where I belong. And I just I know I didn't know at the time what I wanted to be, but it just something about school. I was like,
Hmm.
this is my life.
Hmm. What were your favorite subjects?
I always loved English, as you can tell. I mean, I've always loved reading and writing. I remember growing up back in elementary, they had these contests of like, if you read like 500 books or 100 books, you get like a medal or something,
Oh
which I
yeah.
did. And so I have like this little, kind of like plaque where it has my name and it's like engraved and stuff for like reading the most amount of books, for the year. So that was
Hmm.
really exciting. And I remember in our public library, they would have these like book clubs during the summer and I would be part of them. So that's how I got into English. I at one point I really loved math, but then I hated it because it just didn't make sense. It was just super complicated and I still don't like it, but I mean, I can work my way through it. And of course, PE, I'm not sure if that would be considered a subject, but I mean,
Oh, of course.
I've always been an active student. Actually, a really cool time of my elementary years was back in the second grade. I used to be out in the soccer field playing with all the boys, like, and I was the only girl.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, there was just something about just playing and like kicking the ball and just kind of getting dirty. Like, I don't know, it really motivated me. And so, that's just one of the like like the pretty cool moments that I got to experience. So that was in a way why I think I enjoyed PE, and I've always been an active person, even though sometimes I can be lagging a little bit, but I mean life happens. And the last subject I would say is Avid. I was part of Avid in my high school years, and I loved
Mhm.
it. A lot of students get in it because of the field trips. They take us out to field trips, which is
All right.
amazing. But I
Yeah,
think Avid was the reason why it prepared me and it got me more interested in college. So
I see.
I really enjoyed that.
For the audience that may not be familiar with Avid, can you explain a little bit about what the program is and what its intention, what it's supposed to do?
Yeah, so I don't recall from at this moment what is I know AVID stands for something, but basically what AVID is it's a class or a subject that prepares you for college. So they teach you how to do core noun notes, and they're like really specific where you have to have a section like area where you write down questions. You have a
Oh,
section that you write down a summary and like your notes and stuff. They also prepare you in organization. I think I think some of the schools still do it, but back in the day we used to have a 5-inch binder, and that's a really big binder. And
that is a big binder.
yeah, and basically we would have to organize all of our work that we would do for the class, and we would get binder checks every Friday, I remember. And students freaked out about that because we would get points deducted if we didn't have like the binder organized. And I remember at the end they would even shake the binder, and if something fell, you would get points deducted because
Oh my gosh.
yes, that meant that you weren't organized. So people were
Wow.
afraid of those binder checks. But basically, the whole point of Avid is it prepares you for college, and they really stress the importance about getting those applications in, letter recommendations. And so Avid, that's what Avid did to me. And if it was, I honestly feel like schools should make a requirement for students to have Avid because it would really benefit students and really keep them on track. So that's basically an overview of what is it about.
Okay. Did your family stress the importance of an education?
All the time, and
Oh yeah.
yes, all the time. My so I come from a really migrant family. My parents worked in Los Files in the fields, and me so for those that don't know, like I live in Huron, California. So it's really rural area. More than 85% of our population is Hispanic. So my parents growing up, they worked in the fields. And when my mom had my sister and I, that's when my dad said, you know what? You just stay at home and I'll take care of the rest. So my dad worked in the fields for several years. And when it comes to education, I always look back to my dad. My dad has been a really big role model for me because growing up, especially during my years of high school, things got very tough. So my dad used to work in a Dusaka corporation. What that
Hmm.
means, what that is like for those of us, including myself, that if you recycle like, plastic or cans, you take them, to that place and you get money for it, right? So my dad used to work in that. He worked in that for 10 years. The designated like corporation or area where he would pick all of his items and stuff was in Colinga. That's 20 minutes away from where I live. So for those that are listening, you're probably like, yeah, I know where Colinga is. Yes. So that was where like the plan was based, I guess you can say.
Hmm.
And my dad worked there for 10 years, and growing up, like I was always a very curious person. Up to this day, I still am. And I wanted to work with my dad. I wanted to help him out because at one point, he would get tired, and I remember telling my dad, "Hey dad, I just want to help you out." He's like, "Yeah, sure." And so I started going with him. So basically he would go to different areas. And thanks to that job, it allowed me to get to know these places where up to this day I still visit them, and I know the routes. So
Hmm.
we would go travel to Mendota, we would go travel to Corcoran, Colinga, Avenal. So for all of my people that live in those areas, like yeah, they are pretty rural areas, very Hispanic background. And so my dad did that for 10 years, and I was the one like dumping all the recyclables in bags. And so
Hmm. Hmm.
the reason why I decided to help my dad was I just wanted to learn more about responsibility, and also like the importance of valuing money. At first I started going just for free, but then my dad's boss was like, you know what, your daughter's actually doing a really good job. She's being consistent every weekend. Let's go ahead and pay her. And
Oh, whoa.
They actually paid me, and at the time, it was a lot of money for me. It was $50 per weekend. At that
Hey,
time, it was like a
right?
lot of money,
That is a lot
yes.
of money for a little
It
kid. Yeah.
was, it was. So like I remember saving it up, and that really taught me to be a saver. So up to this day, like I'm really good when it comes to like, saving up. Like I know like my expenses and stuff. Sometimes I do tend to get carried away, but I'm really good at, coming back to saving. But unfortunately, after 10 years, you know, um, I think I want to say maybe it was like around the early or late 2000s. That's when the economy hit very bad and a lot of families got affected. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
my dad got laid off his job. And so during that time, it was super hard for us. And so my dad had to go back to the fields after like over 10 years. And I remember at one point my dad was waking up at 3 in the morning to go to
Oh.
work. And for many of the listeners that are listening that have, people that are still working in these fields, like it's a no big deal, I guess. They wake up at 3 a.m. But growing up, I know when my dad worked in the fields, I was small, so I don't remember that. But now seeing it as a teenager, that crushed my heart because there was nothing that I can do for my dad. I really wanted to help him out, but I was just a teenager in high school. My
Hmm.
parents, they were always the type that if either you go to school or you work. They never wanted me to do both because sometimes having both can distract me from my studies. So I had to pick either
Mm.
one. And so that's why school was always a priority. So during that time, long story short, it was really hard and it was like I felt like I really wanted to help them. And then a position came to be a custodian.
Hmm.
And but before that, actually, before my dad became a custodian, he actually ended up going to get his truck driver license because that was the only option. He even went to school after so many years. He had never gone to college, and he went to college, to get his driver's license to be a truck driver. He didn't want to be a truck driver because he knew that being on the road, he was going to miss a lot of opportunities for us to see us grow. He was gonna miss special moments, but at the time, that was our only way out. We were
Hmm.
suffering just like many other families, and my mom was concerned. Like we were all concerned because, especially, I've heard a lot of stories of truck drivers that they drive long distance, and some of them even fall asleep, and that's when accidents happen. And we were just like so concerned about my dad, and um once he like graduated and he got his certification, we were like, okay, well, you now it's time to officially start the whole truck driving thing. But then this is where the custodian job came through, to be a custodian there in our same town for our middle school. And I share this story because, number one, not many people take into consideration custodians, and I will get to that in just a bit. But I remember that my dad came in. He's like, "Oh, well, there's a position for a custodian. They just require a high school diploma because he did graduate from high school." And I was like, "Oh, really, Dad?" And he's like, "Yeah, but I've never done it. I've never done like a formal interview." That was like one of the most special moments that I have as a daughter to share with my dad because he asked me for like help. I remember I would help him out with his interview questions, and we would even practice. And he would even say like, "So how do I dress?" Like that moment for me, like it was like, I still get teary about it every time I talk about it. I promise myself I wouldn't do this in this podcast because it crushes me every time. But it was just knowing that my dad had an opportunity to work in town, and not only save gas but be close to us was really huge for us. So it was a big thing there at that time. So long story short, he got the job finally, and now he transferred to our elementary school, which is right across the street from our home. So his gas is just walking steps, like I like to say it. So gracias a Dios, thankfully, thank God that everything worked out. Everything happens for a reason. But the reason why I said why custodians are important is because thanks to my dad, it has helped me to value education and helped me to value employees, to not see them by their titles, because everyone is just the same. Everyone has a heart. Everyone is a human being. It's just we have, different jobs. And so going back, to why that is important in education. My dad always told me like, don't become a me. Yes, custodians, we have it rough. He often comes to the house and says, I can't believe that, they left me this, they left me that. And it's not that he complains, but there are certain things that I feel like we can help custodians with. So my
Hmm.
dad always told me, you know what, the next time that you get a job, make sure that you remember you appreciate your custodians, because we get underappreciated a lot. We often get seen like we're like, oh, we're like the geeky people, we're like the people that just throws the trash, but they're more than that. So
Hmm.
thanks to my dad being a custodian, that has taught me like the morals of being humble and kind in the education field. And so it's been super important. He always said, get yourself a job where you can be in the AC when it's like over 100 degrees, where you
Hmm.
can be in the warm and stuff like that. And so it all goes back to like the importance of higher education. He always told us, and my mom too, but I feel like my dad more because he comes from a background where so he had like some of his relatives that went to college, and so he kind of understands a little bit more because my mom never went to college. My dad, has those, that background with some of his family members, but he always stressed it out, and I think that's what helped me to kind of stay true to education, and that's why I am here.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that part of your story with us and sharing your dad's story as well. I think it's really important for the audience to hear the context of like your inspiration to continue on to college. So the next part of my question, I think you kind of answered it already, but we kind
Yeah.
of want to know a little bit more about what that college discussion was like with your family. Was it difficult to bring up like, how are we going to pay for this? What are you going to do once you transition out? Who's going to help the family out? Yeah, can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I knew that when going to college and I'll probably touch on this a little bit later, but I always knew that I wanted to stay nearby because I wanted to help on my family. It wasn't necessarily hard in the sense of like, oh, where I want to go. It was more like hard of like, oh, how much is the cost? That's often like the main thing that people get concerned, like how much is this gonna cost, Because
Hmm.
education it's not it's expensive. I mean, it's free in some
It is.
ways, but in others it's really pricey. So I think that was like the biggest thing. And I know like even for my mom too, like being a mom, I can only imagine like having your kids far away from you, it's gonna hurt. But I didn't do it. I didn't stay home just because my parents told me so, but because I wanted to. I just felt like it was right. It was just right for me. But being able to just continue being with them, it has really helped out. And many people out there probably listen to this. Because I have been told like, you know what, like, you used to live with your parents, like, why is that? You don't want to pay rent and stuff. It has nothing to do with that. First of all,
Right. Right.
right now, houses are super expensive, as we know,
Right. Yes.
super
Yes.
expensive. So, but for me, I mean, it's always helped out. I think living at home has helped me to really stay true to myself and have those morals. Like, it's a constant reminder, like, hey, remember, this is who you are and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, college, it wasn't really hard at all. It was always like my parents, hey, have you done this? Have you done that? Always kind of keeping me on check to ensure that everything was, in place.
Wonderful. How did you prepare for college? I know you took Avid courses in high school, but in what other ways did your family or you prepare for college?
Yeah, so Avid was one of them, like how I mentioned before. And then having the conversations, I think that was big with my family. But another thing too, I think that really helped me was surrounding myself with those people that had the same goal. Like, we often hear, there's really good influences and bad influences. And growing up, I was very shy. I consider myself a very introvert person. I'm very
Hmm.
shy, especially when it comes to work meetings. When I'm in a really big group, I can really shut down because imposter syndrome really hits hard. But now in my new role, I have to be an extrovert. I have to be out there and recruiting and talking to parents and students. And so sometimes it switches, but I would say surrounding myself, like whether that was with friends or counselors, like I was very careful with the type of people that I surrounded myself with. Like, if I knew that there was some kids in that were going in the wrong path, I would just stay away because sometimes the influences can be very strong.
It can
And
be, yeah.
and yeah, my parents always, and again, it goes back to my parents, they always said, you know what, you you better not do this, you better not do that, like having the whole talk about like, doing drugs, that like that was a automatic no growing up. And so I think that's what really helped me out to prepare for college. Like having that right support system is gonna get you to where you want to get to.
Absolutely. So you ended up choosing California State University, Fresno for your bachelor's degree. What led to that decision? How did you arrive to CSU Fresno?
Yeah, so before Fresno, actually, I attended West Hills Community College, Colinga.
Oh
Shout out,
wow. Okay.
yeah. So shout out to my team, specifically to my library team, because that's where it all started for me. But that's where I started. So it was 2-year institution, and so. I originally wanted to go straight to for a 4-year, which was Fresno State. We had actually visited with Avid one time, and I love the campus. Fresno State actually has changed a lot. For those
Mm,
who don't know, it's expanding more. Beautiful, beautiful new buildings and a lot of resources that were not available when I was a student. So it's really good
mhm,
not that now that we have it. But honestly, like I mentioned, I wanted to be close by home. And also, like I said, I love the campus, but there was just something about going to a 2-year that I think was the reason that it prepared me to go to California State University, Fresno, because during the 2-year, it was more small. I was able to really understand, in addition to taking my general ed classes, I was starting to really understand little by little what it meant to be a college student because they don't teach us how to really be a college student. Yes, it's important to go to school, but
mhm.
what does it mean to turn in, your assignments, by midnight? What does it mean to go to your professor's office hours? Like there's so many things that really they don't teach you. You have to really figure it out on your own. And of course, that's where these resources and these programs come in. And I was really involved. I was like in 3 different programs in community college. I was like a president of our trio club.
Mhm.
Hello, I'm also a trio
Nice.
alumni. And so and I actually was the graduation speaker for my 2014 class, which was one of my big goals that I had never done. My biggest public speaking event ever. I spoke over like 500 people that day, which was nice. But
Mhm.
going first to West Hills, Kalinga, it helped me to transition to Fresno State. So once I went to Fresno State, I felt like I was more equipped. I felt more comfortable. But even then, like it was like very big, so it was different. But I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm a forever Fresno State. I'm a Bulldog alumni, and I just love the Fresno State family. It's home.
Wonderful. Yeah. So you said you were also a TRIO alum. Was it only for student support services, or was it for Upward Bound? Well, yeah. What other TRIO programs did you participate in?
Yeah, so I was part of student support services program. So
Mhm.
I didn't want to be part of trio at the
Oh,
beginning.
really? Like, okay,
No,
we
so
got to have that origin story. What happened?
yeah, so basically, we were a really big clique at that time, like probably like around 10 or 15 of us. We were always so there's like this like chess quad area and there's like 4 tables. We would always be outside, and I remember seeing the supervisor or like the director at the time always walk by. She would always say, "Hey, there's trio. Do you guys want to be part of it?" And we would say no until one day that director, she's like, "Let's go." And I'm like, where? And like, "Let's go. We're going to trio." I'm like, okay. So I was kind of forced to be part of trio. And then from there,
Uh-huh.
that's where everything opened up. So we started attending and I started, letting my friends know. We all became part of the group. We started
Mhm.
going to the field trips and stuff. And then from there, we started changing like the different, like the vice president, the presidents, like all of that board. I eventually was appointed vice president, and then from there I became president of the actual trio club. So in addition to SSS, there was also a trio club on campus. So that's how I also got involved. So I
Wow.
never wanted to be part of trio, and that's how it happened.
Just kind of forced into it. All right.
Yeah.
I was about to ask you, what type of support did you receive both at the community college and at the state university level? Because it sounds like a lot of the resources that existed were either you were like, you know what, and admittedly, right, for first generation students, it's hard for
Yes.
us to ask for help. So, yeah, what type of support did you get?
Yeah, so in addition to, like I mentioned, SSS, I was part of the mentor program at West Hills. So I was a mentor. I was technically mentors are like kind of like tutors, but you're really mentoring students. You're helping them. You're keeping up to date with with their academics and really being that type of mentor, during their college journey there. So I was part of that. I was also part of the EOPS program. And specifically my counselor was amazing. Like I met with her, I think having those like services, meeting with my counselor on a monthly basis and being really consistent about it, like actually wanting counseling, that was super helpful. And I know we had these workshops that were mandatory that we had to attend and these events. And because
Hmm.
of my involvement, actually, like at the end of the year when we graduate, they host this ceremony, and I actually was chosen EOPS Student of the Year, and I got like this like really cool plaque or star award, and
Hmm.
like just goes to show like being involved and using the resources gives you those free stuff as a student. So
Hmm.
those things is what really gave me support. And when I was at Fresno State, I was part of the EOP Education Opportunity Program. Again, it was kind of similar to the services that I had in West Hills. Basically, they hosted workshops of academics. They hosted events, and then at the end they would have like a ceremony to kind of celebrate like the whole year, how we had
Hmm.
done and stuff like that. So I would say like those programs, just being involved, just knowing what's out there for you, and more than anything, seeking your counselor, at least for me, was super helpful.
Hmm. Absolutely. Can you talk to us about your college experience? What was that like?
So it was very scary. I especially when I transferred, because when you're going from a two-year university, it's super small, right?
Hmm.
But then when you transfer, it's like a whole different world. I remember like the first couple weeks, it took me a while to really adjust, and I had no friends. I had no idea who to hang out with. It really wasn't until when I started going to my actual major classes when I started making those friends, or at least those colleagues where I can, interact and exchange numbers and help each other out. So
Hmm.
it was scary, but like I said, I think part of that really helped me to understand how the college journey really was, and it exposed me to meet new people. Like I feel like I was forced to meet new people
Hmm.
because I was on my own. You have to make friends at eventually at some point, because you just never know when you can need the help. And of course it's a really nice thing to know that you have people that you can rely on. But it was very rough. I remember like even like doing the whole homework stuff. It was super it was really super hard. Like there was one time where I had to like I went to sleep at 3 or 4 in the morning, and I had to wake up by 5 because I had to do a
Ooh.
very important project. Like yes, we will pull up I will pull up those how do they call it, all-nighters, yeah, all-nighters
Hmm.
sometimes, because I had very important stuff. So and that my experience in that aspect was super busy, especially as an English major. But even then, as a first generation college student, you're really figuring stuff like out on your own. Like my sister, that she now we have tons of resources available, like in many like worldwide now, that I feel like this next generation has it a little bit more easy. I'm not saying that it's gonna always gonna be like that, but there's tons of things now that back then it wasn't offered. But I would say like being first generation, especially the oldest child, it is tough because you don't have that figure like guiding you. And so like for instance, my sister, she had me, and she grew up seeing me go to college, and she followed those footsteps, and now she's a kindergarten teacher, and I'm very proud of her.
Wow.
And so that just, yeah, so that goes to show that, yes, it was scary. I struggled through it, but your struggle is like might was helpful for someone else. So
Hmm.
that was my
Hmm.
experience.
So you majored in English education. Was that an evolution, like you eventually did declared into English education, or was that something straight out the bat that you were like, I'm going to declare English education?
It was I think as I moved forward, I was like, you know what, I'm going to declare English ed, just because, like I mentioned before, I enjoyed reading and writing. It was just something that fulfilled me. I actually originally wanted to teach. I wanted to be an English teacher, and I was looking into middle school or high school, because that was just my passion. I had that. that career in my head for years. I was so passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
But, and really, when I graduated my last semester, I decided to change careers. I didn't change majors because it was too late already. I was already graduating. So there was like, I couldn't go back, but I don't regret it at all because thanks to my English ed major, it has helped me in other areas in my role. But I originally wanted to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
However, that changed, and I'm really glad it changed. And and we'll get to that in just a bit. But the reason why it changed was because of Upper Bound, and so
Wow.
I don't regret it. But yeah, English has always been. I guess it just down the line I enjoyed it, and I'm like, you know what, this is like the most subject that or the major that makes sense to me, so I'm gonna go for it.
Right on. So was this program challenging, or what do you remember most about it?
Oh, so much reading. Oh, the readings. Let me tell you, the readings were very stressful. Like, as an English major, I'm sure a lot of to my English folks, hearing this can relate, especially if you're taking like three or four English courses, which I wouldn't recommend. I feel like the most that I took in a semester were two or at least three because it was tons of reading. Those readings were like super long, and I'm telling you, like sometimes it would be like a book, and then additionally, you had to read like three or four chapters of that book and in addition like an article. It was like it was stressful sometimes because I did not have the time. I had to skim through it.
Yeah.
Sorry to my professors, but I had to skim through it. I
The
really
degree's already awarded, right? It's
right.
too late.
So I really had to skim through it. I was like, I'm sorry, but I just didn't have the time. And so on top of that, I think when it came to like even the essays, oh, every time when I would write the essays and just wait for that grade, that was so nerve-wracking because
Yeah.
especially after working very hard on it, going, and getting help. I was always that student that went to my professor hours or office hours. So
Hmm.
to any of my students hearing this, if you're in college or when you go to college, please seek your professor during their office hours. I cannot stress how important that is. That really helped me. And so I utilized that resource. I remember also going to the tutoring center at Fresno State, and it also helped me. But those grades, man, like every time when I would get like if I saw a grade that I was not satisfied with, I was like, man, like I worked so hard and I feel like I deserve this. I deserve a better grade. But at the end of the day, I mean, it was, it was for whatever reason, but yeah, it was very stressful. It wasn't the best time, but I did eventually learn something.
Right on. Did you get involved with Fresno State on campus? I know you mentioned the Trio Club and some organizations, but were there other organizations that you were like, you know what, I also want to dip my toes in there and be a part of this thing over here? Some
Mhm.
students become part of student government.
Yeah. Yeah. So my case was different. I was a commuter. I was commuting to Fresno State. So from Fresno to Huron, it's a 1 hour drive plus
Whoa.
traffic. Yeah. So I did that for 3 years because I was at Fresno State for 3 years. And as a commuter, it was really difficult for me to be involved because I know there was like in a case of like clubs or organizations, they had these specific, meetings on a weekly basis that you had to
Right.
attend. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, I wasn't able to commit to that. But I did got involved in other ways. Like, for example, anytime that they had like events, I was always out there, like really showing my face, getting to meet new people. Even though, again, like it kind of it sounds kind of weird saying this because I just mentioned earlier that I'm a big introvert, but sometimes if like I have to be an extrovert if I really want to learn and grow. So I kind of force myself to put myself in that position.
Hmm.
But but that was one way that I got involved. But really, for me, it was actually social media. I
Oh, really?
utilized social media, specifically Twitter. At the
Hmm.
time, I was really connected with Twitter. And I started just sharing like a bunch of like just things that I was doing at school. And thanks to that, that landed me really great opportunities like to record three interview videos for Fresno State. One was for Fresno State Student Club Board about food insecurity. And
Hmm.
that video is actually out on YouTube. It's only 2 minutes, but I just basically share my story about like how it was, getting the resources, like the free items, the free food and stuff like that. And then I was chosen by one of my counselors to share my story. Like it was a quick 30 seconds, but for me at that time, it was like it meant the world world to me because they could have went with a lot of students and they went with me. So it was a huge honor for me. And then in addition to that, I was also part of community food bank interview video where I got to share a little bit more about like just the importance of really going out to your community and seeking those free resources because even growing up, we often struggled, of course, like who doesn't love free food? Right now we have these resources that can really make a difference in these families' lives. And because of my involvement through Twitter, just being a regular college student and sharing my story, it led me to land these positions. And I have to give a huge shout out to the first lady and the president at the time which was Joseph Castro and Mary. They were the ones that really helped me and the reason why I landed those positions. I remember I even got to go to a jewelry store in Fresno to
Mhm.
speak and I was speaking in front of these like business like these higher up people and I was just a student and they believed in me to share my story and like I literally had like a podium and a mic, and I just felt like I was like the president of a like of like the United States,
Right, right.
I was just enjoying my moment at the time, but just having those small things for me, like that was my involvement. It wasn't so much like on campus, but it was more like through social media. I utilize social media as a tool to share positivity and to inspire others.
Right on. Talk to us about the moment you graduated from college. What was that like for you?
It was a relief. I felt like I was like, finally, I was done. But I have to say that so many emotions, if it's a very emotional night for those, at least for me, I'm a very emotional person because I really feel a lot. And so I remember when well, first of all, during your graduation goes by very fast.
Mhm.
And so you just there's certain things that you just don't remember because just the emotions, the energy, you're just really into it. Like you're finally walking down the aisle, but to get your diploma, it's a really big thing. And so
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
remember it was a moment where I felt like I beat the odds. It does go by so fast, like I mentioned. And and really it was like that moment where it showed me that I was going to be the good example for my other relatives, like other cousins that,
Mhm.
that potentially they wanted to seek an education. So it was super fun. I will say that, super fun. You really, oh my gosh, anyone that is like wondering to walk, like, because of course you have the option either to just graduate and get your diploma or just walk, please. I always encourage my students, if you have the opportunity to graduate, walk, and it does not matter what age you are. Because back at my former institution, I worked with college students, and a lot of the population was like really like 40 and over. And
Mhm.
so some of them were like, I'm not sure if I want to like walk, I'm like, no, like walk, yes, one thing is graduating, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing if you choose that, but if you're like undecided, like if your age or something is holding you back, don't let that be the reason why you don't go out there and celebrate. Have fun. You don't get to walk, uh, you know, for your diploma every day. Like
Mhm.
that's your
True,
moment
very
to
true.
shine. So, I mean, it was just so much fun.
Absolutely. Now, did you you decided to also pursue a master's degree, which we'll get to here in just a bit, but did you do that immediately after graduation, or did you give it some space to breathe before you thought about going the master's route?
Mhm. Yeah, well, actually, my story it was kind of a little bit different. So, right when I graduated, of course, I felt like I wanted to get my master's, and I actually applied to a program there at Fresno State where I attended, but unfortunately, I got denied twice, and
Oh, I'm sorry.
it was a really big bummer. Yeah, the first time I want to say like I felt like I didn't give it my best. So I
Hmm.
know it was on my end, but the second time it really hurt because I remember I was commuting on my own time to meet with like counselors that were already in the program. They were looking through my application, and they even said I had a really good shot. And then for me to see like the letter coming in to say sorry, but we cannot accept you, it was a really big bummer. And so
Hmm.
it was kind of the time where I'm like, you know what? I feel like I have to either keep on trying or find a job. And so from there, I that's where my current position back at West Hills is where it started. And I'm like, okay, I basically just got the experience, and then later on, that's when I decided that I got my master's. So that was pretty much the timeline how it all began.
Wow. So talk to us about that work experience after graduation. Did you find a job immediately right after? Did you take some time to look for a job? Yeah, what was that like?
It took me about, I want to say, over like a year to actually land my full-time position. And so at the time I was working like
Hmm.
with other jobs and like part-time or like a few hours, and then this position came up like to be a tutor specialist. So it took me a while, but eventually like I landed that position. It was my first ever full-time position. Really enjoyed it, but it's really tough. I mean, some students get really lucky where they find employment right away, while others they struggle, and I totally
Hmm.
get that. I know a student that is in the same boat right now where he was attending UC Irvine and he came back. He's back in town and he's looking for employment, and it's almost going to be a year and he's still in the same boat.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it was really rough to find employment, and thankfully I was able to land it like near home.
Hmm. So you decided to pursue a master's in psychology. What inspired you to pursue this degree?
So, a master's, I knew that I wanted, if I ever wanted to go above the bachelor's, it would be my master's. But what really inspired me, I would have to say, was back in 2017. So I went through a very tragic experience that I don't think we normally refer to ourselves in this way. But again, the famous author and podcaster and life coach Trent Shelton, like I mentioned earlier, he in one of his podcasts, he once said that often we always hear people say, "Oh, we always hear of people dying, right? You know, people die
Hmm.
every day and stuff, unfortunately." But
Hmm.
and yes, they die physically, but there's also that aspect of people die mentally and emotionally. And when he said that, I was like, huh, like that really got to me. And up to this date, that's just something that I can never forget. So basically, I went through this really bad experience where I truly believe that I got killed mentally and emotionally. I was very lost, I felt like I was really low, at a really low point of my life. And it came to a point where I I was tired of feeling how I was feeling. I just didn't have how they say, in Spanish, ánimos, like
Hmm.
just the energy to really move forward. It was just like I didn't have inspiration, I didn't have motivation, and I
Hmm.
felt like like there was just one day I remember waking up and I'm like, what am I doing to myself?
Hmm.
I am not improving. I am not being successful. I hate how I'm feeling. I need to change this up. So I really I wanted to feel alive again, like, because I
Hmm.
feel like I was living, but at the same time I was dead. I felt like I was like half and half, and that's a little bit hard probably to understand for those hearing this, but that's how I felt. I felt like I was just I had no purpose. I didn't know what was my purpose, and I wanted
Hmm.
to I wanted to find that light again. So I started my master's. What it really did for me is it allowed me to love myself, and it allowed me to really find that light again and this strength that I thought I didn't have. Thanks to my master's, it really helped me to really understand like who is really Catherine Ibarra, like who do I
Hmm.
want to be in
Hmm.
life. And it really also holds a special place in my heart because I actually graduated back with my master's back in 2021, and it was exactly one day before Thanksgiving. That's why November is a very special month for me. In addition to
Hmm.
Thanksgiving, every day is a day to be thankful. But because I graduated with my master's and I got my master's because of that reason, that I wanted to really improve my life and really change my life and feel happy again, that's why it holds a really special meaning, which is why my favorite number is 21 because of my
Hmm.
master's. And it was a year that I found myself, that I really got to enjoy and just really love the beauty in and out.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Catherine. Uh, so talk to us about that grad school experience. Is it different, that much different from your undergrad experience?
Yeah, so it is, I would say it's different in the sense that you are just focusing on just your grad, like your your major. So your bachelor's, like your bachelor's, it's a little bit combination of like a little bit of general ed and then like your major, right? Your grad school is nothing but just your major. For me, I did mine online because at the time I was fully employed. And having a full-time job while going to school, it's tough. And so I had to do it online because that was during the year that the pandemic hit. I had to make a decision.
Right. That's right.
So I knew that I wanted to be, I remember when I started working as a tutor specialist, I knew that at one point I wanted to go back to school to get my master's. And I remember my boss at the time, he kept on pushing me, hey, are you getting your master's? I'm like, yeah, but just give me like at least 1 or 2 years to get like familiar with my job. Then I will eventually make the decision. Well, then guess what? The pandemic hits. We shut down. We had no idea what was going on. So it was like the best time. It was like now or never. So I didn't know, like there was so much in the unknown at the time. And I felt like I need to do something. It's either I go to school or I wait, but how long will this wait be? Because everything was shutting down. And so that's where I started doing research. And then I came across Grand Canyon University, a private college in Arizona. In Phoenix, Arizona, and I started doing research, and then that's where I saw psychology, and specifically what really caught my attention was the life coaching emphasis. Because during my time that I was discovering this new person, trying to love myself back, I was really into life coaching. I was attending these life coaching sessions for free. The pandemic, but unfortunately, it brought so much darkness, but at the same time it brought so many free things, so many like resources online at the time. And a lot of these life coaches, they were hosting stuff for free because mental health was becoming a very big issue. All of us were going through a tough time. We were all scared. We just had no idea what was going on. And so I started joining those, and that's what really got me into specifically psychology with life coaching. And actually the pretty cool thing about that is one of those life coaches, again, Trent Shelton, for example. Again, I'm a big fan of him. For those who don't know, go check him out. He is amazing. During the pandemic, he would host these like workout sessions, like Zoom workout sessions, because we couldn't go out. And so that was our exercise. And he would always have these Q&As at the end. And I got to speak to the very own Trent Shelton, like actually ask him a question. I have it all on video, but that was just like a really cool moment. But going back to my grad experience, I think it would taught me about it. But even though it was online, it taught me the importance of going at your own pace, time management. You really have to manage your time. Like
Oh, absolutely.
You're really learning on your own, especially in the online world. Like you have to know, okay, when can I set time to do this or do that? And so it really taught me a lot about like being consistent with my time. And of course, the best thing of all, I got to visit Arizona for the very first time. I had never gone. We actually went down there for my graduation. I got to walk again for the second time for my master's. Yeah. So, and it was super long. I did not like the commute. So long, man. I would probably fly out next time. Drive, I'm not so sure. It was too long. Too long. But I mean, I got to see the campus for the very first time. My family and I, we got to buy some swag where we ended up taking like a family photo with like like Grand Canyon swag. And it was actually pretty cool because they had like shirts for like all the family. So they had a shirt for the dad, the mom, and the sister. And so we have a portrait like that. So that was
that's awesome.
Yeah. So my grad school, I would say like if I had to choose between like grad school and the bachelor's, I would say I would pick grad school more than anything. Yes, it is a lot of work, but it's doable. Like you're really working at your own pace. Like you're figuring your schedule out versus like like your bachelor's, you're still trying to figure things out. You're still taking a little bit of here, a little bit of there, but grad school, it's like you're fully on. Like you're already an expert, and you're just becoming more of an expert, I guess you can say.
Right on. Yeah. So you're a tutor specialist at this point. You're going to grad school. At what point did you realize about this position, about the director for the Upward Bound Math Science? And what inspired you to apply?
Yeah, so I mentioned that I was a trio alumni and I'm forever will be a trio person at heart. But it really goes back to my upper bound kiddos. I worked with the upper bound program at Wessel's Kalinga for 5 years as a RA residential advisor. I worked with them. Shout out to all my kiddos from San Joaquin, Mendota, Tranquility, Huron, Colinga, Three Rocks, I think Fireball too. You know who you are. Those kiddos, they changed my life. And that's going back to when I said that I wanted to be a teacher. Well, Upper Bound was the reason why I decided to change careers. But as a tutor specialist, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, but after a while, I felt like it was time for me to like fly. I wanted something new. I wanted a new challenge, and my library team at West Hills knows this that I was always very passionate for students, and they know my history with Upper Bound, and so they always told me, hey, you should apply for the director position because
Hmm.
I told them that this position, my current role right now had opened up here at COS. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I was at first I just applied just to apply. And I'll say this
Right,
because
right.
at the time when I was looking for different positions, I applied to like I cannot recall how many times I applied how many jobs, but I just applied and I thought I didn't have a chance of getting this job. And the reason why is because I was getting rejections from coordinator positions. And from my
Mm,
understanding, coordinator positions are below the director. So I felt if I'm getting rejections from these coordinator positions, what makes me think that I'm going to get the job of a director? When I
hmm.
was working with my upper bond kiddos, and this was from 2014 to 2017, 2018, at the time, I was very well connected with my students, and up to this day, I'm still really well connected. I have written several of letters of recommendation to them, and so I'm really still well connected with a lot of them, and I've just seen them grow. Some of them have already gotten married, have had their families. I'm just like, oh my
Wow.
gosh, it's incredible. It's I mean, we have really had become a familia, and that's what Trio is
Hmm.
all about, family. And so at the time my kiddos always told me, Miss Ibarra, like you really, if you ever get the chance to become a director, apply for you would be a good director, Miss Ibarra. And the more they told me that, the more I got inspired. But of course, at the time when I was a tourist specialist, like it's funny because when I started there, the director position at that college had opened up. But I
Hmm.
mean, I had just started as a tutor specialist, so the timing was off. And it wasn't until recently when I saw this position, I was like, oh, the director, the for trio opened up, so I just applied, right? And so I applied, and the funny story before I get into how, eventually everything happened was so we have a specialist position under my department. And they actually had interviews November of last year. I
Hmm.
applied for that at that time because I was still in the process of, applying for jobs. I applied for that. I came in for an interview for the specialist position in the same
Right,
department a year ago, like, today.
right.
And I went for it now and I felt pretty good. I'm like, okay, if I ever want to become a director, this would be a good opportunity for me to get experience and then eventually move on up to the director. Well,
Hmm.
unfortunately, I didn't get the job to be the
Hmm.
specialist for this position. So I was like,
Hmm.
okay. But fast forward to now, it's funny that I didn't get the specialist position, but now I'm the director. So it
Yeah.
was and it's within my same department. So I applied, and then I remember within a few days later I get the call like, hey, we want to interview you for the director position. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a okay, it's just the first interview, not a big deal, but okay, it is a big deal, but it's like again, I didn't want to keep my hopes up
Right,
because
right.
I had applied to so many other jobs and I was like, no, this cannot be. And so then after my first interview, I get the call the next day. Hey, we want you for a second interview. That's when I was like, oh shoot, it is getting real. This is more serious.
Yeah.
I went and so I before so the day of my second interview, I remember that I was killing time. I was outside of the building where they were going to interview me, and then the president, our president, Brent Calvin, shout out to him and his team. walks. He approached me and he says, "Hey, are you one of the people that we're interviewing?" And I'm like, "Yes." And then we introduced each other, and he's like, "Oh, are you so and so's cousin?" Because I had a cousin that played basketball here, and I'm like, "Yeah." So that interaction helped me to not feel as nervous when I went in there. So that's exactly how it happened. So I went in there, I felt like I crushed it. I basically was myself. And then I was like, you know what? I walked out of there and I was like, you know what? It's God, it's in your hands. Está en tu manos, Dios. And I was like, if it's meant for me, it's for me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
literally, I remember after that, I went to go eat lunch because I hadn't ate lunch. I was super nervous. And then after eating lunch within like a little over an hour, that same day, I got the phone call for the offer. So
Whoa,
yeah,
that's amazing.
so it wasn't even like a day or two. It was like, and it's funny because during my interview, our president was like, "Well, you're in a really good, the competition is very high." So when he said that, he made me believe like, "Oh,
It gets that. Oh,
I have a
yeah,
chance, yeah, like, or I don't." But then
yeah.
when he called me and it was him, he's like, "Hey, we just felt like you would be a great fit for the team. Please be with us." And so they were really so considerate, and they allowed me to think about it a day and walk it through with my family and stuff. I walked it with my family. They were super supportive. They were like, "Well, mija, if it's a good opportunity for you, you have been looking for it, go for it." They were really big on that. Also, to my boyfriend too, he was a big support up to this day as well. And so that's basically how it happened. And I never would have thought that I would become a director. But if you're looking at it from the moment I started as a RA till now, that's 9 years later that I'm here as a
Yeah.
director. So it's
Wow.
a bittersweet moment for me.
That's wonderful. Congratulations, Catherine. Really.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, so give us a rundown about Upward Bound Math Science. What is it about, and what services does your program offer?
Mhm. Yeah, so I'm still just so for those that are listening to this, I am just about to complete 3 months. So I am still fairly learning. And what I've learned so far is we have a variety of different resources. We offer anything such as from academic and counseling. We have Saturday sessions where we meet with the students and we host workshops, educational workshops. We have after school tutorial sessions where we help students out with their homework. And again, we bring in like presenters or presentations in regards to like college, anything around the college world and stuff like that. We also, and one of the cool things about, in addition to that, is we do these educational college tour visits, and where we take students to these institutions for them to get to really see how the college is, know where it is at, get to learn more about their resources. Students really love that about the program because they get to visit our well, they get to visit like their dream school, that's literally what I did with Avid.
Mhm.
So they really love that. And of course, we also offer stipends, like these checks. Students actually get paid to be part of our program as long as they pass their grades and they have good attendance and they basically behave and stuff. So that's basically what we offer from what I've learned so far, basically the overview. But for me as a new director, I want to mix it up. I want to be able to make it fun where I can bring, if possible, these big people like that well known to our students, because it just mixes stuff up, and I want them to get excited. We are a STEM based program, which means that anything in the science, engineering, technology, or mathematics area, so anything in that field, we really want to stress that to our students. So yeah, that's pretty much a roundabout of what we offer, and more than anything, just really making students excited to attend college.
Right on. What has been in your 3 months already in your position? What has been the most challenging or rewarding aspects of your position?
So I am the only one holding the fort right now as a
Oh,
director.
whoa. Yeah.
And I say this because it's very important, and this is why. So that has been the most challenging part. I'm currently in the process of hiring my team. My team will be super small, but it's going to be extra help, and I can really use that extra help. So that has been the challenging part. I think just being able to juggle a little bit of everything. Right now, I'm the one visiting our high school sites. I'm the one planning our Saturday sessions, doing this, doing that. So I don't have enough hands to do it all. Just really being being really soft on myself because I have been really rough lately, just because I care. I really care about this program. I really care about, my kiddos. That has been the challenging part. However, the most rewarding thing is that because, in a position like how I am, I'm building my own program. I am doing everything from scratch. So when I get my team, like I'm gonna be training them, and and it has helped me to grow and prepare more of myself as a leader who I want to be for my team, because I am a true believer of leadership, helping your staff team out and stuff like that. There has been a lot of bad days. Today has just been it has been one of those, and this is a great way to end the day, by being here and sharing my story. Being solo, I will say that you will often come with a lot of bad days, but I was just at a conference last week. Shout out to my St. Cal West Stop family, mi familia. Going to that conference, oh my goodness, it made a difference to me. I feel different mentally. Yes, I'm still crazy running around. I literally have felt like a chicken all day, just running around because there's just so much that is piling up. But being able to network, that has been like the most rewarding. Like I never would have thought that trio. I know trio, there's like we go to these conferences as directors and we go to these places, but there is actually a familia. There's a different world outside of this, and I got to witness that, and that was just my first ever conference. I can only imagine moving forward the other conferences that I'm going to be getting exposed to, and I cannot wait. But I would say that's the most challenging. Yes, it's hard to be by yourself, but at the same time, you're growing, and I feel like I'm growing. Like I've been telling some of my colleagues, I'm adulting. I'm becoming more of a bigger adult, being by myself.
Absolutely. The adulting is kicking in.
Yeah.
What skills would someone need to have in order to be in the job in trio in the field of education that you're in?
I would say be a leader, not a boss. And what does that mean? Being able to really lead. So it's not about you talking at your staff, but you talking with your staff. I'm a true
Hmm.
believer of that. Being able to be patient, be a listener. Like if being someone in this field, especially as a director, I need to understand that my team is going to have bad days, and I need to be there to listen to them. I need to support them in every way. Yes, we might have a lot going on, but at the end of the day, if my staff team is not taken care of, we are not going to progress. We're not going to be, our best selves doing that. So really putting yourself out there, I would say, that's something that it can be really scary for people, but I envision my staff team, like I want to push them, for them to go to this conference or for them to go to this event so they can get exposed to, like, I'm the type that I want them to move on up. Like, yes, it would crush me to lose them, but I want them to move on up, and being able to have those type of skills where you are taking risks, and hopefully you are discussing those risks with your supervisors or your deans, because it is very important as well to report back. And of course, at the end of the day, it's for the benefit of the students, for the program, but really really being that true leader aspect. I mean, I worked with tutors back at West Hills, and I always made sure to really be that leader. Like, hey, and what I mean by a leader is not only just telling them like, hey, I need you to do this, but how's your day going? How can I support you? Like, that's what really helped. That's what really kept our background, like our relationship, strong.
Right on. What advice would you give to trio participants, whether they're pre-college, in college, thinking about grad school, or maybe some of those that are thinking about, I want to go to college? What advice would you give to them?
First, I would say don't let your current situation be your final result, because things happen. You might have a plan, but that's why you plan for plan B, and you plan for plan C. Next, life is about the journey, not the destination. Again, I wanted to be a teacher, but now look where I am at. I am directing an upper bound math and science program in a 2-year institution, which I never thought would have ever happened. I am still in this journey. I still have no idea where I will be 10, 20 years from now, hopefully making an impact, hopefully still working with students. Don't be too hard on yourself more than anything. I know sometimes we really hurt ourselves because we didn't turn that last assignment, or we didn't deliver that speech correctly. But at the end of the day, you do your best. And I have had to remind myself about that several times, especially being by myself. It's not an easy thing, but it's just if we are hard on ourselves, it's because we care, but at the same time, don't hurt yourself over it. Life happens. It's okay. Take a breather, take a step back, and come back to it tomorrow. And then more than anything, find your people. Find those people that are going to uplift you, whether that's a life coach, whether that's your best friends, your counselor. Those people are going to really help you. Like for me right now, it's my family. My family has been my big support.
Mm-hmm.
My trio colleagues, they have been like, now I'm often texting like these directors like, hey, what does this mean? What does that mean? Like they've been super supportive. And also like even my friends too, being able just to kind of have some time to relax and kind of enjoy and stuff like that. And also my educators here on campus, they have been a really big support. I mean, I cannot tell you, I still have a lot to learn here in this institution, but so far everyone has been super nice. At least in my area and in our department, they have been super helpful. Just ensuring that everything's in place. And then of course, more than anything, just really practicing self-care, having that support again. My boyfriend has been super amazing. He's always constantly reminding me like, hey, you got this, like don't give up. That has really been, a huge help. But more than anything, like I said, going back to like, just because right now it's rough doesn't mean it's going to be rough all the time. Storms don't last forever. The rainbow will eventually come out pretty soon.
Wonderful. That's great advice. If you had the opportunity to talk to every single trio professional across the United States and its territories, what would you say to them? What advice would you give, or what's something you would say?
I would say don't ever stop reaching out to your peeps, especially to those new people like myself, because we need your help. We need you. Oh my goodness. I would definitely stress that out because you'd be very surprised how important, how much of a big difference it makes when you reach out to, that person. I've been in contact with this director from Chicago, and we never met. We definitely plan to meet in one of our one conference coming up next year. And so just the fact like how we already interacted, we already, zoomed in and stuff, like, and he's offered me his help. He's like, I got you, don't worry, I got you, new friend. And so it feels really nice. So don't ever stop reaching to people, whether doesn't matter if they've been in the position over 10 years, 20, whatever, if they're really new, reach out because it really makes a difference. At least for me, it really does. And also, schedule those Zooms, go out to dinners, keep that bond alive. Like I constantly have these check-ins at times with like up to this day, I still, we have a chat, with my former library department, and I'm always constantly sharing what I'm doing over here. Like sometimes I'll be like, okay, guys, I'm not showing off. Okay, maybe I am, but this is what I'm doing today. So, but small things like that, it helps me to remember who I am and where I started. It's super important to me. The profession world it can be very overwhelming, but just doing that outreach is gonna be a huge difference. Sometimes I reach out to folks just sending a quick email like saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" Or I saw this online and it reminded me of you. Like I'm that type of person to reach out because I know how it feels like, and it can really change your day completely.
Absolutely. Are there any books, movies, TV shows, podcasts, or any other general entertainment activities that you would recommend to the audience?
So when it comes to entertainment, like I really don't have time to watch movies and TV anymore. But when I do, I strongly suggest for entertainment, this show will not fail. Like if you're having the worst day, it'll make you laugh. It'll really get you out of your seat because that's how I am. I go really
Yeah.
all out. Let's Make a Deal with Wayne Brady. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but
I've heard of this.
yes, like it's kind of like the show of like The Price is Right, like shows like The Wheel of Fortune. I mean, I also watch those from time to time, but Wayne Brady, oh my gosh, that show That show is amazing. That I would one day, that's one of my goals actually, to go to that show one day and win those prizes, win the big deal
Right
of the
on.
day.
There you go, Catherine. Yeah.
Yes, one day it's gonna happen. So I would say that show. I know a lot of people are often like into like Netflix and stuff nowadays. I know like really good shows like The Good Doctor. Oh, that one's so good. I
Yeah.
highly encourage people to watch it. No, it's super long. I know a lot of people are really into like Greg's Anatomy or something like that. I've never watched it, but people say it's good. But at least for me, entertainment wise, I mean, I used to watch a lot of novelas back in the day, but I just don't have the time
Yeah.
anymore.
It's an investment to really watch novelas now.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so I feel back in the day they were like, I don't know, I feel like they were more better. Like today they just I don't know, but that's just me. And in addition to books, I mean, I've read so many books during the pandemic. I read a lot, but I would say The Greatest You by, again, Trent Shelton, Live Like a Monk, and The 8 Rules of Love by Jay Shetty. Jay Shetty is actually a really well-known influencer. I'm sure all of us have seen many videos that he's done live online, and he has also a podcast which is called On Purpose. Trent also has a podcast. It's called the Straight Up Podcast. Highly encourage those two podcasts for anyone out there that is just wanting to get better in your life. You're really trying to find your purpose. Really great guests that they talk about the importance of self-care. That those two podcasts really helped me during my most challenging times. There's a bunch of other ones, but I think for me, I would say those would be like the best that I would encourage. And any type of leadership books. Yeah, that's a huge thing for educators out there.
All right. Now I'm going to ask you the hardest question that I've had to ask on this podcast. Describe yourself using only one word.
Oh, you put it really hard right there. One word. Oh my gosh. I'm in between two, but this one I feel like it does not fail because it's just, I honestly feel it, and I would have to say inspiring.
Inspiring. I love that. Yeah. Inspiring,
just because I can be having the worst day. Like today was not a good day, and you probably would not even notice. Even here recording this, you probably wouldn't even realize that it was a bad day. But I'm the type of person that I can find things to get inspired. It can be like a simple, like, oh, I see the sunset, I get inspired to do something, or I'm just sitting eating an ice cream and then I think about something and I get inspired. So I think everyone that knows me, like, they'll say that you're so inspiring, like, and because that's just, and I've made a change in people's lives, and I see it because that all has come back to me. But yeah, inspiring would have to be the top one, I feel like.
Right on. We're going to use the title to your podcast episode.
Yes.
Wonderful. Catherine, it was such a pleasure to have you on this podcast. I hope to have you on again soon to provide updates, let us know how the program is doing and everything. Let's follow up.
Yes, for sure.
So, Catherine, we do have a tradition on the Let's Talk Trio podcast where we have the guests sign off. Do you care to do the honors?
Yes, absolutely. So, hi, this is Catherine Ybarra, and I am the director of Trio Upper Bound Math and Science program at College of the Sequoias. I attended California State University, Fresno for my bachelor's degree in English education and attended Grand Canyon University for my master's in psychology with an emphasis in life coaching. I want everyone listening to leave you with this. No matter how high you go in life, remember where you started. Stay humble, appreciate gratitude to the fullest, do your best, and more than anything, be yourself. Treat people how you would want to be treated. Trio works.
That was our guest, Catherine Ybarra, who is the director for the Trio Upward Bound Math Science program at the College of the Sequoias. Thank you, Catherine, for being on the podcast and for sharing your trio story. Remember, if you would like to be on the Let's Talk Trio podcast or know a staff, advocate, participant, or alumni, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. A huge thanks to our sponsors, Angelica Villalpando, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jeff Naputi, Angelica Valdez, Rosario Riley, Felicia Rivera, TrioJoblist.com, Jaded Electronics, Nosotros Education Center, Cambridge Educational Services, and Student Access. Thank you all so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can sponsor the Let's Talk Trio podcast in one of three ways. Become a monthly patron on Patreon. Our base patron level starts at $1 a month. Become a corporate sponsor by placing an ad on our podcast. Contact us for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast PayPal account. Our handle is @Let'sTalkTrio. I'd like to take a moment to thank our honorary members of the Let's Talk Trio podcast, Roderick Chambers, Tony Ho, Scott Kendall, and Susan Cramp. The Let's Talk Trio podcast team is John Russell, audio engineer, music producer and composer, and post-production editor. Amelia Castañeda, script supervisor, marketing manager, social media manager, and producer. Juan Rivas, executive producer and host. This episode was recorded Thursday, November 2nd, 2023. We are in an election year. I strongly urge our listeners to exercise their right to vote. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.